It's certainly the case with the College of Psychologists. It's like, they changed their name, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
they changed their name.
College of Psychologists and Behavior Analysts. Well, why did you change your name? It wouldn't be because the old name on Twitter was attracting like 25,000 negative complaints, would it? I'm sure it was just coincidence. And the new name is so much more elegant.
Are they on X still?
Yes.
Under a new name?
Yes, College of Psychologists and Behavior Analysts. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Only a bureaucrat could come up with that name.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to type in. They're going to hope people are going to get confused.
So I don't know what's going to happen with this re-education scheme. Like, first of all, they have to. What I'm going to do, by the way, I might as well make this public because I'm making all of this public. As soon as I get word about who the re-educator is, and I kind of know, but not certainly, I'm going to contact him and I'm going to say, because I think he's in the UK and hasn't got any experience in this sort of thing, I'm going to say, do you have any idea what rat hole you're stepping into? Like, this is how you want to spend the rest of your life, is it? You want to jump into this absolute bloody insane mess and be what? The brunt of unpopular public opinion that's so intense you can hardly possibly imagine it for the next 10 years.
Yeah, well,
don't do it. And people will say, Peterson is threatening the re-educator. It's like, this is not a threat. This is nothing that I'm going to do except to make it public. I regard it as a humanitarian gesture. And,
people
I'm
need to know.
Partly ironic about this and partly not. It's like, don't do it. You have no idea what this is going to be like. There's nothing in it for you. Unless you're narcissistic beyond belief or you've been hiding under a rock for the last 8 years, you have no idea what's going on, I wouldn't get involved.
Or you want to be a martyr. Like
sure,
if that's what you want to
or
be
you want to be the person that brings me down, or like if you know what you're doing, go ahead, man.
Yeah. And I'm glad you clarified that it's not a threat. I honestly feel bad for. I do feel a bit bad
wish
for
it
that
on
person.
my worst enemy.
No, because it's just obviously the tides are going to turn. This is crazy. Objectively, it's crazy. They have to go through with it. It's too much of a bureaucracy to not go through with it. Yeah. They can't be like, oh, well, maybe we should have changed the way.
That's actually not even true, because I offered them a public deal. I wrote a National Post article, and I offered them a deal. It was a very straightforward deal. And they had a new registrar, like the head of the organization, essentially, the administrative head. I said, look, there's actually a problem here. The problem is that technological transformation has made complaints far too easy. Mm-hmm. You can just go to the forum.
Internationally.
Yeah, internationally. And so let's change a few rules. You guys admit that you hadn't updated your technology to take into account the dangers of ease of complaint. And so now only citizens of Ontario or inhabitants of Ontario can complain, and they can only complain if they're first or second party recipients of the service of a profession. Okay, 80% of the problems go away right there. You admit that, and you change your policies, and I say, well, I can understand that you got caught up in a technological revolution, and I leave it be, and you leave it be, and 80% of the problem is solved, and we're done. So I offered that publicly. So there is a way out. It's very simple. It would require not even any real loss of face on their part, because some of that is, a substantive amount of that is true. Like, the complaint process wasn't weaponized before the complaint system was transformed electronically. Because it was a pain. You actually had to do some work to complain instead of just going, click.
Entire transcript of Joe Rogan podcast sent from Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is what's happened, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, anyway.
We've covered that.
Okay. Well.
Okay, so, we didn't talk about the tour.
Yeah.
I'm on a tour again for We Who Wrestle with God. And it's primarily an American tour, although there are some Canadian dates. Hopefully I won't get arrested like Tommy Robinson.
Gosh.
There are some Canadian dates. The information on the tour is at jordanbpeterson.com. The tour although it focuses on we who wrestle with God, and it presents a description of the rationale for a sequence of foundational stories. I wouldn't say it's the same. It has the same aim as the tours that I've gone out before. I'm describing what I'm working on intellectually, but it's all presented in a manner that's very, very practical. And it has that aim. As a behavior therapist, it's always my aim to take high-level abstract conceptualizations and explain them so that they're compelling and understandable, but then to make them practically applicable. Mm-hmm. And so this just continues that same process. So I think we're in like 40 cities between now and April, something like that. Maybe it's
crazy tour again.
Yeah. So
I would clarify though, because I've had people reaching out on Instagram too, that like, is it just focused on Christians or something like that? And I've listened to your show, and I think like what you get at the end of the show is a more organized worldview and how to improve your life.
Yeah.
It's pretty foundational, right? There's God in the title, and you obviously talk about the biblical stories and things, but what you're doing is laying a foundation for people.
I'm trying to help people clarify their structure of value. Like, what is it that you're aiming at? Well, the insistence in any genuine religious endeavor worthy of its name is that you aim at what's best. Well, how do you conceptualize what's best? How do you conceptualize what's highest? What relationship do you have to that? Abstractly and also practically. And so
it's a hard thing to do.
It's the only thing harder is to not do it. Right. And that's true. Actually easier moment by moment, but way harder in the medium to long run. That's the thing about a properly oriented religious vision, is that it makes everything in the medium to long run way easier, way more productive, way less racked with guilt and pain. It takes discipline and careful attention in the moment. So, or you can reverse that. You can have exactly what you want, however you want it right now, and pay tomorrow.
By living in hell.
Right. That's not a good solution. So, and I'm trying to explain why. I am explaining why. I'm not trying. I am explaining why these stories are foundational. And I'm also trying to point out to people that the stories in the biblical library, because it is a library, they're about you. Obviously. Like when you go see a Harry Potter movie, it's about you. Like, you don't notice that, but if it wasn't about you, you wouldn't be interested in it. Like, if it didn't have any bearing on you, I don't mean it's about you in a selfish way. It's laying out some inescapable elements of the human condition and describing a manner of dealing with them. Why else would you go see a movie, for example? Why would you read a work of fiction? Fiction is a weird genre. It's like, why do you care about things that never happened? So,
yeah.
Stories. We live by stories. There's no way around it. That's an indisputable scientific fact. That's the revolution that's taken place in the last 50 years. People across a variety of disciplines have come to understand that a description of the structure through which we see the world is a story. That's indisputable.
Crazy.
That's driving the culture war, that argument. But the empiricists and the rationalists, they lost. We do see the world through a story. Once you know that, the only question is, well, what's the greatest story ever told? Right, that's the only question.
How did you figure that out? Because you've been talking about this for a very long time. So how did you switch from, like, let's say, I mean, a rationalist? I don't even know if you were a rationalist originally, but I would say the
empiricist
average,
probably more.
Okay, how did you switch from that?
So the difference between a rationalist and an empiricist is an empiricist believes that we build our worldview bottom up from the facts, and that there is a strata of sensory data that constitutes the self-evident fact, and that all our knowledge emerges from that.
Okay.
The rationalist believes that there has to be a structure that intermediates between the sense data and the psyche so that we impose order on the world. We don't just, order doesn't just emerge from the bottom up, that we bring an order that's part of our cognitive apparatus to our view of the world.
Oh.
Okay. The rationalists were closer to the truth than the empiricists, although we do change even our rational worldview as a consequence of empirical data. But the rationalists believed that the basis for that imposition of order was rationality. It's not, it's narrative.
Have they met anybody?
Well, yeah, I know.
Who are you hanging out with? Because I haven't met them.
Right. No, but that's exactly right. You know, that was the flaw in the worldview of the rationalists, like, let's say, like Dawkins, or even Michael Shermer, for that matter, both people I have respect for, by the way. We'll free ourselves of our superstition and we'll become scientists. It's like, A, no, we won't, and B, no, we won't. Almost no scientists are scientists.
Seen that.
Well,
that's
sure.
been loud and clear over the last period of years.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Suddenly everyone was a scientist.
Yes.
They're like, oh, nobody's a scientist.
Yeah. Well, then that's true. Like, it's really hard to be a scientist because you have to be willing to change what you think when you're wrong.
Yeah, you can't have any ego associated with it.
You have to look for where you're wrong. That's very annoying. It's very annoying, especially if you predicated your career on something you claim to be true. It's like, you know that thing that got me the job and my reputation? Turns out it's wrong.
Yeah, you have to really want to find the truth.
Yeah, you have to be desperate.
And that's it. That's it. And then it doesn't matter if you're wrong because who cares? The goal is to find the truth.
Right. Well, the thing is, at that point, you're not only a scientist, you're also religious because you believe that the truth will set you free and you actually believe it. And that's hard. That's really hard. Like first of all, no, there would be no real science without a bunch of false science. So let's get that on. Like, to do something right requires doing it badly a lot. So the fact that a lot of scientific studies aren't replicable, it's like, well, you know, some undergraduate did the study and it was his first one. So, you know, should it have been published? Yes, because you have to learn how to write scientific papers. Most science is wrong, but some of it isn't, right? There doesn't have to be much that's real for things. And like, how much of it do we want to be real? Do we want things to move faster than they already are? You know, if we generate 3% new information a year and 97% of what we're doing is rubbish, it's 3% a year. You know, it's like, it means we're like twice as smart in 10 years. That's plenty fast. So, in any case, it turns out that we do see the world through a story. And the biblical insistence is that the story isn't one of power, and it's not one of hedonistic self-gratification, and it's not one of nihilism. It's one of responsible, upward-seeking sacrifice. And that's true. It's true. It's not merely a religious proclamation, although it is that. It's inevitably the case. It's the case by definition. Here's one way of understanding that. Attention is sacrificial. Why? Because when you attend to one thing, there is an infinite number of other things that you are not attending to. Right? When you do one thing,